I never swam in Port Phillip Bay. I just didn't consider it a place to go. The gift for me of COVID was providing an opportunity to experience something that came out of a very difficult and low time, and yet it completely opened a new world. We're just this small part of something much bigger. You know, someone once said to me, don't you get bored going every morning? Like, isn't it always the same? What connects us is so much more than what divides us.
Did you say a shark? Hold up. Well, Fiona Basile, welcome to Fully Fearless. Tell me, what are you most passionate about in your life right now?
Oh, right now, I have actually just started the second book in my Immerse open water swimming series. So the first book was a photographic coffee table book, which celebrated the special open water swimming community that we have here in Seaford. And it also showcases the beauty of our bay. So right now that is bringing a lot of life as I interview the next round of people who have found a special sense of community and connection with our open waters here locally. Yeah, that's giving me a lot of life at the minute.
Just before we hit record, you mentioned that you'd been for a swim this morning. You do it every morning, don't you?
I do. I do it most mornings. I'd say every morning, but sometimes I'm not in the area or I might be unwell. But yes, as a general practice, I'm down at the water 7 a.m. each morning, or sometimes earlier, because it's beautiful to be in the water when the sun is rising. You know, you can be out in the depths and then you see the sun rising over we've got land to our east. So for us who swim in Seaford, our sun rises over the land. Whereas sometimes when you're swimming elsewhere, if you experience the sun rising over the water, it's a completely different experience. Yeah, so that has set up my day beautifully. A swim and then coffee. And on Wednesdays, we tend to have a breakfast together. So, yeah, it's a wonderful. So much is done before 9 a.m. before we have to hit the workbooks.
That's amazing. So you go every day. Are there people going with you every day, or is there a regular sort of weekly session? Can you remind me how often other people are coming with you?
So the swimmers who gather at Seaford come every day. There's a very vast group. There is a core group that comes at 7 a.m. religiously. There are some who come at 6 a.m., 6:30 a.m. because they need to leave earlier for work. And then there are those that come at 8, sometimes 8:30. I've been open water swimming now for 4 years, almost 4.5 years. The group has slowly grown and evolved, but there's always been that core group that has come every morning. And then there are others who just come and go as the seasons come and go. You find out who the hardcore ones are when it's the winter season. So we're coming up to the cooler months and we can certainly start to feel the difference in the water temperature and the outside temperature. So we see a natural drop off during this time. And yeah, but now when my first book, Immerse, came out, there were about 65 of us in our WhatsApp group where we can keep up to date with who's doing what, or, you know, what time someone might be swimming or any public service announcements. But now in that WhatsApp group, we have over 100. So
Wow.
yeah, we won't ever get 100 at once, probably at most. And certainly over this recent Easter break, I think there was one morning where we had about 30 or 35, mostly locals who all just came, and it was lovely. Locals, and when I say locals, now we have people who travel from Croydon or from Doncaster East or Berwick or Cranbourne. They come from Mornington. So we call them locals now because they're coming, you know, to regularly swim at Seaford. We're trying not to let the secret out too much of just how beautiful Seaford is.
Whoops.
Yes. So, yeah, there's always someone down at the Seaford Pier, either in the water, on the seats overlooking the water, on the pier. There's plenty of dogs. We sometimes say there's more dogs than there are people. Lots of coffees in hand. And, you know, we have a beautiful village of coffee shops, which we consider all part of our open water swimming community, because the coffee post-swim is an essential.
Beautiful tradition. Was this a COVID related thing that started this off, or tell me how this came about, that you actually convinced such a large group of people or yourself and all these other people to do something that a lot of people would find, out of the comfort zone.
Yes, so my story with open water swimming really did begin in those COVID years. By the second lockdown, we were experiencing quite strict lockdown restrictions. And previous to COVID, I was a very big traveler. I would spend 4 to 6 weeks overseas every year. And that for me was a real sense of joy and life and adventure. So by the time the second year of the lockdowns came, I was feeling really actually quite depressed and quite heavy and just really feeling I just needed to do something different. So one evening I decided, right, tomorrow morning I'm going to go down to Seaford Pier. I'm going to take my camera gear and I'm just going to take photos for the joy of it at sunrise. Just going to go and do that. And so the next morning I did that and I was all rugged up because it was the 3rd of June, it was freezing. And as I was walking out the pier, I saw a group of swimmers going out and I thought they were crazy. I thought, oh, who are these crazy people? It's freezing. Now, as I walked to the end of the pier, and this small group of swimmers were at one of the marker poles, which is about 150 meters offshore, a pod of dolphins swam by, and it was so beautiful and so exhilarating. I got out my iPhone, I was filming the video of the pod of dolphins swimming by. You can see that on my website. And so after that, I thought, oh my goodness, if just for that moment, that experience, that just brought such joy. And so I walked back to the shore from the pier, and there I met a woman called Karen, and she was telling me about the swimmers because I was asking, and she said, you should join us. We come every morning. And I thought at that time, maybe I could be crazy enough. But then as I was walking home, I met a father and his daughter who had been in the water and they asked for the video. And so I shared it and they also encouraged me to come the next morning. So I thought to myself, okay, I think I'll do it. So the next morning I went down and I did in fact go in. It was the 4th of June, 2021. It was the middle of winter.
Wow.
There's a photograph in the first Immerse book of me. One of the other swimmers, Nicole, captured that photo, my first morning in. And really, from then on, my life changed, in terms of that. First of all, the adrenaline and the zing and the dopamine and the endorphins. But I suppose during that time, it gave me a sense of something new, an adventure. The cold water, the freezing water was certainly all of those things I've mentioned. And then eventually, months down the track, looking back, I really could see the difference in my body physically. I was feeling fitter and stronger. Mentally, the clarity, because you're just starting the day, with such a zing, and the beautiful social connections and the friends. So, emotionally, and then spiritually, just being in this vast body of water, the beauty of the sunrises, feeling that wonder and awe, and just being immersed in the beauty of those open waters. Yeah, so that's how my journey started. And then I think, as we were posting more on social media, the photos and the stories, I know people were coming to Seaford as a result of those posts, so that once the lockdowns ended, they came and joined us. They'd say, oh, we saw your posts on Instagram and I just couldn't wait to come and join you. Or, we've seen, yeah, pretty much through social media. And then, after a couple of years, once I'd gathered a body of photographs and really started to become friends with the other swimmers and hearing their stories of why they swim and what draws them to the water and how it's benefited them, I thought there's a book in this that we need to share. And yeah, I'm really happy to say that then after Immerse, we've had even more people join. They've said,
Wonderful.
yeah, they've said, I read your book and I read the stories, I saw the photos, and I was inspired to come. Or I was inspired to jump back in the water. Or I was inspired to visit, So that's been a really lovely fruit of the book. So yeah, as I said, it's a fine balance between us trying to maintain that lovely, beautiful community atmosphere and not being overtaken. But We're lucky here. The bay here across, Port Phillip Bay is just a beautiful offering for us, that water, and it's accessible in most places, and, you know, it's free.
Mm-hmm.
It's free and it's open to all. So, yeah, I really now can count my blessings and I don't take it for granted anymore. Mm.
No, it's so good that it is free and accessible. I think there are parts of the world probably where there's private beaches that you can't go to, and it's hidden behind whoever's got the most money. And so it's nice that there's still that. And to think at that time, and being not too far away from you, like being in Melbourne, and I remember it felt like we were pretty much in home detention. And and
Yes.
every day you're hearing all the fear and all the statistics of how many have died today, what the death toll is now, and all of that. And you just found a way to find another reality.
Yes, it was really the opening up of a new world
Mm.
because previous to that, I can admit I never swam in Port Phillip Bay. I just didn't consider it a place to go. As I said, I traveled a lot internationally, and because of my Italian background, that meant I would travel often to Italy and the beautiful Mediterranean islands. My family is Sicilian, so that meant I would often go and visit family in Sicily. And so years ago, I considered that open water swimming or that to be the ocean or surface paradise in Queensland to be the ocean, but not what we had here on our doorstep. And so the gift for me of COVID was providing an opportunity to experience something that came out of a very difficult and low time, and yet it completely opened a new world. Now there's a whole world of marine life under the surface. There's a whole world of new friends and community. There's new language. We talk about the wind direction. We talk about the tides. We talk about what the wind's doing. We're talking about what's that marine life or what's that fish or did you know this about dolphins or there's that crab. Just the other morning, there was a group of Seaford swimmers. We needed to rescue a crab that had been entangled in fishing wire, and as well as then it had all entangled in seaweed. So there were about 4 or 5 women all working together to free it. And, so there's a deeper reverence for the marine life, a care. We're always arriving and picking up the rubbish or if we see something. And I do think, for me anyway, that deeper sensitivity, reverence, love for, care for, and respect for the earth has come from this greater connection. I'm in the water every morning, most mornings, and what you love, you take care of. So yeah, that's been a really beautiful gift of that time.
It's so beautiful in so many ways. I mean, the fact that you just rocked up and then there was this instant connection of people willing to take you in and you were sharing your videos and stuff, which meant straight away you're swapping contact details in order to do that. And just
Yes,
those bonds and that camaraderie
yes,
and yeah, coming together and helping the environment together and the marine life. That's so beautiful.
yes,
And can you tell me a bit more about the water? Because I think I was watching some of your videos and your footage and the meaning of the water and the feeling that it gets you. And some of that footage, like you can see, probably taken with drone footage when you go up above and you just see a swimmer in this immense or the immense body of water, or the ones taken where you can see from underneath the water, and it is quite incredible.
yes. So the water photography is new for me. That started again during that open water swimming practice. Before that, I was using my big Nikon kit that I use on my photographic assignments and writing assignments. And so once I had been swimming for a couple of months in the water, I was gifted a GoPro as a reward for finally reaching that marker pole, 150 meters offshore.
Nice.
And yeah, yeah,
Who gave you that? It's
James.
amazing.
He's a good egg.
Yeah.
And yeah, so using the GoPro, I was able to then start capturing this footage and photos from within the water.
Wow.
So you get a lot of those perspectives of actually being in the water and then the footage underneath. So both the video and the photography. And I love when you're swimming back into shore, when the sun is rising and then the light is coming through the water. And because the water's moving and the light's coming through, it's just magical, absolutely magical. I can't get enough of swimming through that because I feel like well, it is another world. That provided a new perspective. The water photography opened up a whole new world in terms of then, the book and the stories and then the wall art and things like that. And then the drone footage that you've seen, that was actually a friend and colleague, Stuart Stanton, who was doing a video. He was actually got me on the other side of the camera where I was being interviewed, similar to this. And he did some drone footage of me out in the open waters. And it was really beautiful to see that perspective too, because often, and I've heard this from the other swimmers as well, you really recognize that you're this small being in a vast world. You're just one tiny person in this big body of water. And it's a beautiful reminder that we're just this small part of something much bigger. And so, yeah, I really think with the GoPro, that water photography, and we see a lot of drone footage now, which is beautiful. It just shows a different perspective. And I suppose in my photography and my video footage, that's what I'm trying to share. It's like so that you feel like you're in the water, you feel that depth and that you see that perspective. And then with the videos, yeah, it's like you could be swimming there in the ocean with us. And it's always different, Olivia.
Yes.
The light's
Yes.
changing all the time. The conditions are changing. In a morning alone, one morning in 10 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
you can go from the soft pinky purple mauve hues, then the sun starts to come up, and then it goes a really crispy light blue, and then a metallic dark blue, and then you look over one way, and you've got the golden sunrise, and that can be from the vibrant reds and purples and oranges and yellows. Sometimes it's really grey. Sometimes it will come out and it's so grey today. But it changes like
Mm-hmm.
that. And so, someone once said to me, "Don't you get bored going every morning? Like, isn't it always the same?" And I just said, "Absolutely not."
Has that person ever been?
Funnily enough, that person now comes regularly.
Oh, now they get it.
Yes, I think so. I think so. I think, well, I suppose we all started somewhere. 4.5 years ago, did not appreciate that bay and I did not see that beauty. I didn't appreciate it. So, sometimes it helps to have a change of circumstance or, out of necessity. Necessity breeds invention. Is that the saying?
Mm-hmm.
Out of my necessity to get out of my doldrums of COVID lockdown. I finally went down at sunrise to the Seaford Pier and got to witness the beauty of a pod of dolphins swimming by, a group of swimmers, the elation. And then from that encounter, now every morning I get that encounter. Although we don't get the encounter every morning of the dolphins, which is a real shame because we really wish we saw dolphins every day. It's always a thrill.
Do you see them very often?
Not often, but we see them.
Wow.
Yes. So, often in the distance, you'll see dolphins, but no, not often. And certainly those close encounters, there have been some. There was one morning where a group of our swimmers were at waist level water just near the Seaford Pier, and there was a pod of dolphins swimming around them. It was amazing. There's been times when we've had seals. So we have a seal that visits, in seasons maybe. Like at the moment, there seems to be a seal that's coming more regularly. We certainly got crabs and we have banjo sharks. We have haikal jellyfish. And there were a couple of summers, unfortunately, where we had the lion's mane jellies, which we don't like because they have long tentacles. And if they touch you, they sting. So there were a couple of summers where we had swarms of those, and you basically, you could try to swim around them, but their tentacles are long and sort of float in the water, and you're like,
Did you say a shark? Hold up, banjo shark. What kind of is that? A shark?
banjo
Shark?
shark. So I don't think it's a shark. I think it might be a type of stingray, but I could be
Okay.
wrong. I think it's a type of stingray. It's got the fins, it looks like a shark tail. They're flat-headed. Their mouth is on the base. So they sort of just go along the sand bottom and their eyes are on top. So they're harmless. I mean, if you stood on one, you'd be like, you'd get a fright, but they're not going to do anything. It's more painful if you stand on a crab
Oh, okay.
and it pierces you.
Ouch.
Yes. Yes. Fish, sometimes we have beautiful, what is it? What's a group of fish called?
School.
Yeah, thank you. Just went out of my head. We have schools of fish,
Hmm.
and that's lovely when sometimes you're in the middle of the school and they're swimming around you. But as my brother-in-law would say, he'd get out of there quick because that's just shark food.
But that doesn't stop you.
Yes, so
Apparently, the sharks aren't interested in humans. It's a first priority.
no, and they bypass Seaford. We've decided they're not interested in us in Seaford. They just go right past.
Excellent. Good. So tell me more about Immerse. How did the first one come about and what does it mean to you?
My first book, Immerse, I should say it's not my first book that I've created, it's about my fifth, but it's the first book of its kind. So it was completely done by me in terms of all of the photography, collating the stories of 35 swimmers who signed up to be part of the book. It also includes poems contributed by some of the swimmers related to the ocean and swimming and inspiring quotes. And it really came about because from 2021 to 2022, I had collected just this vast array of photographs of the ocean. And I thought to myself by the end of 2022, I'd really like to do something with these photos. And I had initially thought to have an exhibition, but that was proving really difficult to organize for the following year. And it's expensive in terms of the framing and printing and finding the spaces. And I had done books before. So I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll do a book and it'll probably just be photos and maybe I'll have inspiring quotes from the swimmers. I wasn't quite sure. In January of 2023, it was one of our swimmers' birthdays. So Karen, she features in the book and she's really one of our key members of the Seaford swimming group because, she started the WhatsApp and she's one of the really welcoming members. She certainly was the person who got me involved initially. I mentioned to Karen, we were all back at the cafe celebrating her birthday, and I said, Karen, I'm thinking about creating a book. It's going to have my photographs. It'll probably have quotes or something from the swimmers. I'm not sure. And, I left it at that. And when Karen got up to say thank you to everyone who had gathered for her birthday, she said, "Now Fiona's writing a book about us. So when she asks you for an interview, you must say yes." And I was filming and I thought, okay, I'm doing a book. And so I think the beauty of the process was I had a rough idea, but it also grew as I started to interview the people who wanted to be part of it. Because when I sat down with these people who were friends, I actually realized just how little I knew of their story and the impact of being part of this community and of being able to open water swim, be in the open waters. And honestly, I just was blown away at the honesty, the rawness, the impact. And so, as I started to collate the stories, I recognized quickly that this book is not only going to be the photos, but really it's going to be the stories of the swimmers because they are deeply profound. So, from January till about May or June, I was collating all the photos. Each swimmer had a folder. Must be in book, probably in book, most likely, not sure. 35 people, all those folders. Then I had a category called open water only, the pier, the pole, groups. And then in those folders, must be in book, probably in book, most likely not sure. And that became my sorting process for the photos. And then I worked with a curator to help me make those final selections for each of the swimmers and the feature shots. She also helped me come up with the structure. When I was sharing with her what I was hearing in the interviews, it became really clear that this book at its heart is about the strength of community, the strength of connection, deepening that connection with ourselves, with each other, with the natural world. The stories are about gratitude, they're about spirit, they're about being immersed. So, community, connection, care, immerse, spirit, and gratitude became the 6 chapters. And then within those chapters are the stories and the photos. And so what resulted is 144 page, oh, I should show you, 144 page large coffee table book. And I chose really thick textured paper because I wanted it to mirror our experience in the water, which is very tactile and really, you know, sensitive and sensuous almost, so that, when you're touching this, that's indented so that you can feel that. And I suppose the lovely surprise was when it came out at the end of 2023, so in the summer, just the joy. I suppose the swimmers, they trusted me, and it was a beautiful process because I worked with each of the swimmers to make sure that they were happy with their words. I chose the photos that would accompany. Each has a double page spread, and then it's interspersed with just spreads of photographs, quotes, inspiring quotes from the swimmers' poems, some words of encouragement, and so forth. But I think on the morning when we all gathered and I was handing out the book, just the joy, people just didn't realize it was going to be a book like this. I just think they didn't, because they would say, "Oh my goodness, it's not, I thought it was going to be, lots of words or a small book," but it's just, yeah, it's just
It's
been
stunning,
glorious.
stunning.
So,
I mean, there will
yeah,
be a YouTube version of this and an audio version. So for anyone listening to the audio version, you might want to hop
yeah.
over to the YouTube version to get a look at the book, or even better, go to the website and
Yeah, and it was a really creative process. After COVID, I made the decision to make it all in Melbourne. Post COVID, I wanted to work with local creatives. So I worked with a curator. I found a graphic designer who I'd worked with before, and she did a marvelous job. I mean, her design is just exquisite. I worked with a local printer here in Melbourne, a pre-press team to get the photos right for printing, editors, proofreaders, and so I suppose the beauty of Immerse and what made it different was I did it all with that team. It wouldn't have been what it was without that team. But I just thought, you know what, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to just make it beautiful and really special and something that we can all keep and love. And yeah, and now it's won a couple of international awards, and the photos have won awards. And it's the book now that keeps on giving, which is, yeah, it's wonderful.
it is beautiful. And I imagine in the same way that you had that pivotal moment of making a decision that was a sliding door moment, you could have not gone to the beach that day, and you decided to, and then you made a connection, and then you said yes to it, and look where you are now. And I guess in the same way, each person that goes along to the beach and that makes that decision has their own story, and I guess probably some of that impact that you're talking about that comes from the community and comes from being in nature and the immense vast waters, and that is affecting each person, and they all have their own profound story.
Yes. Do you know one thing that I found? I've done author talks with Immerse across Victoria, New South Wales, even internationally in Ireland, Wales. What has really struck me is just the stories. Like, really, the stories, there are similarities and yet there are differences. But in essence, what connects us is so much more than what divides us. When I'm sharing the stories in Wales, the swimmers there are listening, saying, "Oh, that could have been me. That's my story." Oh, I get that. I totally get that. And, in Ireland, the same thing. People really resonate. And I think it's because the swimmers who have shared their stories, I mean, they're coming from the heart, it's their experience. But for those of us who love the water, who love, being in the water, however that might be, you could just dip, you could put your toes in, or you could swim far. Doesn't matter. There is something about that, hearing the stories and resonating with them, and it didn't matter where I was in the world doing the author talk. People were saying, "Oh, I get it. You could be writing about me." So that was a really beautiful example of having this thing. this practice where you can be in the water, however you show up in the water, and being able to share stories of how that mostly positively impacts you, and what it is that draws you to the water. I've loved that. That has been the gift of Immerse, the author talks, and meeting so many like-minded people who then share their stories and experiences. And we're just building an international community of water lovers, people who love the water, who appreciate it, care for it. And we never tire of talking and having coffees and swimming and being in the water.
Well, one thing that's just come to me is, I guess we think about when we look after our mental health and our physical health and everything, the first thing we do is the medical model and medicines and stuff, and there's certainly a place for that. But some of these other things that are forms of medicine and healing are not thought of. They're not at the forefront of our minds. And I'm wondering if that's a thing that you found, whether people, whether it's, I don't know, mental or physical or whichever way, have you found that people have been a lot more healthy in whichever way you measure that?
Without a doubt. So I would say anecdotally, I'm not a scientist, I don't know the data, but I've certainly read a lot now about the benefits of being in the open waters, looking at water, cold water immersion. But just from the stories that people have shared with me, we've had, body healings, people who had backaches who now can walk properly, or arthritis, or mental illness and depression. So they have shared that having taken up this practice, their health has improved, their mental health, their physical health, being part of a community, their emotional health, maybe even spiritual health, because, when you're in this vast beauty, this body, there's that transcendent, and you don't need to practice a certain religion to have an experience where you just feel out of body, or you can just really take in the beauty. So I would say, from what I have heard from the swimmers, there's been many stories of people sharing how being in the open waters and being part of community has helped them and their health, whether it's mental health, physical health, emotional, certainly. And look, for me, I would say I have become a lot fitter, especially when you're swimming in those winter months. There is something about being in the water when it's freezing. You've got all the endorphins and the dopamine and the social connection. There isn't a morning where I don't laugh. We just laugh, or you squeal because it's cold, or, you hug. Sometimes there's tears because something's going on. And so, I don't know how you would measure that emotional health, but I'm sure we could say that that social connection as human beings is so important. And so I have new beautiful friends in my community. I can't go to the post office for 5 minutes because there's 5 people I need to sit and have a coffee with. You know, my
Wow.
my village now is where my friends are, and we would say the same thing. I'd started interviewing for the second book, the second in the Immerse series. And what I've heard, these are people who have come post the first Immerse book. So
Mm-hmm.
these are people who've joined later. And one of the questions I ask is, how did you, come to be swimming at Seaford? What was your introduction? And they speak of having to overcome that. Oh, I didn't think I could join. Oh, I've been living here for years. I never had a sense of community, but now I do. Now I've got friends who I can meet for a swim, but also socially. Oh, I had a sore knee. I couldn't do anything about it, but I've been swimming for the past year and it seems to be better. I've got arthritis. I can't walk, but in the water, I'm weightless and I come out feeling better. So, yeah, I would personally attest to the benefits of it, but it's all rounded.
Mm-hmm.
It's the physical benefits, the exercise, low impact, it's the social benefits, it's the emotional, and, the spiritual, really feeling that you're in this vast ocean of God's creation, universe, world, and being immersed in that beauty and wanting to take care of it. So they're all good things.
Sounds amazing. I can't imagine how I could. I don't think I can. I'm just thinking that sounds so good. I'm sold, but except I got to take my kids to school in the morning, and my husband's not around, so I don't. I don't-
There are ways around it,
there are
Olivia. People
ways.
work it out.
Yeah.
Just come and visit us one morning.
Yes.
Just
Just drop them off to school all wet.
don't worry. Do you know what? There are people who have been sitting watching us for years,
Yeah.
and they sit there with their coffee and Then one day they're like, in. And, something happens, something changes, and they go, you know what, I'm going to give it a go. One friend, he had a heart attack last year. He had been one of the people that every morning he was there with his dog having a coffee. He had a heart attack. He survived. He regained his health. Now we can't get him out of the water because he decided, I've got one life
Yeah.
and I've been given a second chance. I'm getting in. And now he's swimming distance.
Wow.
It's amazing. So, yeah, never say never
Never say
is
never.
what I'd say, because we've had people who've been watching for years and who've said, I would never do that. And lo and behold, they're in.
Yay.
Yes.
Now, perhaps switching gears a bit, can I ask you to tell me about your trips to Rwanda and everything surrounding that? Can you tell me what that's been about?
Yes. So one of my loves is documentary photography, storytelling, really going into the heart of a person or a community. And I have a dear friend, Gabrielle, who has been diagnosed with a terminal cancer. And 31 years ago, Rwanda experienced that horrific genocide over the 100 days and beyond, because it didn't stop after the official 100 days. So Gabrielle was working for World Vision, and she was sent there to Rwanda to be part of the human aid assistance. And whilst there, she met a young woman called Chantel. She's Rwandan. She survived the genocide. Now, they've stayed friends all this time. Fast forward to a year ago, when Gabby was diagnosed with the terminal cancer, she decided, rather than wait for a funeral where she's not going to hear everybody's beautiful things, she was going to have a big celebration of life for her birthday with her twin sister. And so she invited Chantel from Rwanda to come for that celebration of life. And there we met Chantel. It was a beautiful celebration of Gabby's life. We all got to share, things, and Gabby got to enjoy it. And when Chantel was visiting, I would catch up with Gabby and Chantel post events. And Gabby had mentioned that she would really love to return to Rwanda. Like, she would really love to go back to Rwanda to see what Chantel has created for her community back in Rwanda. And the invitation was extended to me and a few others. Chantel, when she realized that I was a photographer, a writer, she said, come to Rwanda, come and, meet people and share our stories of hope. We're not the country that we were. And also for Gabby, I thought it would be a beautiful thing to do with Gabby, my friend, be there, witness her returning after 30 years. And so we did, in July and August last year. I think Gabby and a couple of her friends were there for maybe 4 or 5 weeks. And I came to Rwanda for 3 weeks. And oh my gosh, I'll start crying. It just broke open my heart in all that is beautiful and good, but also that which is really tragic and sad, because Rwanda is not the country that it was 31 years ago. It has come a long way from the genocide. And, there is a real sense of wanting peace and unity and reconciliation and development. And, oh, the Rwandan people are so warm, and they are a singing culture. They are a dancing culture. It's not unusual to be hugged in the market, or whilst I was in Rwanda, it was a wonderful opportunity to photograph and to see what Chantal has built for her community. So, in a remote village outside of Kigali, which is the capital, she has created this beautiful wellness center. It's accommodation. It has a kitchen that provides food for the guests. It has a yoga room, meditation, a library. She teaches the children cultural dance and song, brings people in. So for us, and particularly Gabby, to see her friend who has survived what she survived, to create this sustainable development type retreat, she hires young people who are very vulnerable and come from very disadvantaged backgrounds. She's got about 10 or 15 families around the wellness centre that she employs the mothers to be the gardeners, because often the mothers don't have work. The children of those families are the children we met often, and we sang with them, we danced with them. I tell you, that's what absolutely broke me open because just their joy and their love on the last day, I was bawling. I was bawling because, there is a lot of poverty still in Rwanda, and the impact of the genocide, it's still there. It's not like it's just gone, you know. People are traumatized, and there is a lot of healing work to be done, a lot of reconciliation work. And so that was an opportunity that I would not have had otherwise. And so since coming back, we've had a fundraiser event for Chantel organized by Gabby, and I was able to use my photos, and we showed the photos and videos to help educate all those that came to the fundraiser. So the name of the wellness center in Rwanda is called Ishobe. And Chantel has named the center Ishobe because it's Kinya Rwandan, which is the language. It's Kinya Rwandan for resilience. And so Ishobe is the name of the place of resilience. And it's an oasis in this place. Since then, I've written an article about Gabrielle, and it talks about her terminal illness and how she has found joy in the face of a terminal illness. She's really teaching us how to walk with someone who is facing death. And yet, if you saw her, I just saw Gabby and Chantel. They were here in Seaford. They met all the swimmers, which was beautiful because some of our swimmers have been to the fundraising events. And so to bring those worlds together for
Mm-hmm.
Chantel and Gabby to meet our swimmers, like, I mean, who would have thought?
Mm.
Rwanda meets Seaford was beautiful. So I've written a story about Gabby, and there's still more to come. Like, there's Chantel's story that I would love to write up and share. There's my own experience. So it takes time, though. That was a very deep experience for me. As I said, it was very heart opening. It was confronting in some ways, but so joyful in other ways. Even just being with Gabby and Chantel and her friends, we sang so much because when you're with the children, I've never sung Do Re Mi so often and so many songs from The Sound of Music because the children, they just love to sing and dance, and, you know, it was just wonderful. So, yeah, that was Rwanda. And, it still plays a role. Like Chantel, we keep in contact with, she's here now. And I know one of the swimmers is hosting an event this week, and I believe that she's going to have the proceeds from that event will go to Chantel's Ashobe. So it's just amazing, the connections. So we'll continue to tell that story. And I really do think I will be back to Rwanda at some point. You sort of can't leave that place unmarked.
Mm-hmm.
It's very special. And to have Chantel still part of our lives here, and she comes to visit because she has met a lovely Australian man.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, so while she was here for the celebration. So there are beautiful connections. And, there's also work that's being done through someone who used to work for World Vision, who he led the reconciliation and healing work, some of that work in Rwanda for World Vision. I'm in contact with him, and he runs those courses here. And I am contemplating doing one of those courses to understand more deeply the process that he engaged in for the people of Rwanda who took it up post-genocide. So life is rich and interesting and takes turns, and for that I'm really grateful.
Did it
Mm.
change the way you see the world? And if so, how? To go to a place where there was genocide and now you seeing it how it is 30 or so years later?
Well, I suppose, if you can go to a country and for its people to have experienced the trauma and the absolute horrific nature of the genocide and to be able to live in peace in a way, you just think if they can do that, I can work toward being a woman of peace
Mm-hmm.
in my world.
Yep.
If someone's irritating me, if somebody, you know, in Rwanda, they are living side by side, killers and victims.
Mm.
Now they don't distinguish between Hutu or Tutsi, the different ethnic groups. Everyone is Rwandan. People all have to be in the same village or the same classrooms again, the same workplaces. There are amazing stories of forgiveness. I met people who I spoke with, thanks to Chantel, who shared their stories of forgiveness. People who killed their family members, and now they have adopted, like women who have adopted the boys, men who killed their family, and they now take care of them in prison, or they take care of them. And that's the work that I was talking about, that reconciliation and healing work. Because I just think, when I think of that, I think, wow, what am I?
It's incredible.
Yeah, it is incredible. It's actually incredible, those stories of healing and hope and rebuilding. So I just think, I look to that and think, if they can do it, I can do it in my backyard, for all the things that I think are really bad, which are not. Puts things in perspective, shall we say.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you pray it never happens again, and that everyone prays it never happens again.
Our world has a lot to learn, but hopefully is learning it, even though it's still going on, but I'm still hopeful. So before I let you go, is there anything I haven't asked you that you want to share?
I think I touched on it before, just that, with the water photography and this new water practice, just how much of a new world it has created in terms of the new community and connections and friendships. But, the book Immerse, I have these beautiful note cards that I make, and the wall art. I've had exhibitions at the Frankston Arts Centre, or in Sorrento at the Antipodes Art Gallery and Bookshop, and in a cafe in Mordialloc, and, it's going to be in the Mornington Library. So I suppose, you talked about before about that sliding moment of just that decision to go down to the pier that morning, and just what has come from that. And it's only four years ago, 4th of June, 2021.
So what's the lesson there?
Just do it. You never know. And I suppose there was that really strong push in me that said, you've got to get out and do something different. I was really feeling heavy and depressed. We'd been locked down for 2 years, no travel, just had to do something. And so I suppose following that and saying, I'm going to get up in the morning, I'm going to go to the pier, I'm going to take photos for the joy of it, no other reason. So I suppose it's refinding those simple things that bring you joy, and you go, okay, I'm just going to go do that for the joy of it. And then, sometimes God's listening, and you're like, oh, I'm glad I took that action. And yeah, so I'm so grateful, because it's opened up a new way of being, a new practice every morning, a new book, new note cards, new wall art, calendars. I'm going to start making beautiful linen tea towels. And that's a joy. I mean, that's one part, obviously, of my work and life, but it's a very big part. So it's lovely that I can integrate that into my creative work and profession. So for that, I'm really grateful.
Wonderful. So how can people reach out and work with you, find you, follow you, all the things?
Yes, I love working with people who want to share stories with heart and passion. And, I suppose what I do with the photography is capturing those special moments and memories, and create legacy pieces, whether it's a book or photographs or articles and so forth. So I have the website, www.fionabasile.com, and then within that is Immerse. And I'm very active on Instagram. So my tag is at Fifi Lepiu, which is an old nickname that my uncle gave me, Fifilepiu. I'm also on Facebook, Fiona Basile Photography, LinkedIn. I was on X, but I don't think I'll stay there. So very active on Instagram, and always out and about in the community. So I love, as I said, capturing those special moments and memories that maybe others don't have the expertise or knowledge or time to do. Well, I can do it in photos and words. I'm your girl.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Stay fearless, hit subscribe, and let's dive into the next episode.